Hello, my name is Matthew Clifford, and today's date is 9/27/2024, and this is a month's worth of progress for my personal project, which is a VR adventure and survival game. So, I've done hundreds of things in the past month that it's hard to remember, but I do know that about 3 to 4 weeks ago, the game looked something like this, roughly, um, with very little components in the game, and now it looks like this currently. So it's not just necessarily everything that you see is progress. There's also been a lot of stuff that you don't see visually. There's more than to it than just graphics. Um, so I'll hit on the main things that I've worked on over the past month, and I'll try to remember all of them. So I'll start with the jetpack on the player, and how that works is when you are in the game, the way you traverse everything is with a jetpack on the player's back that you can activate using a button, and there's no model for the jetpack because you'll never be able to see it because it's on your back, and it just doesn't work in VR. But this jetpack was uh, one of the most difficult parts of the game so far, and it took quite a bit of work and having to completely scrap it and work on it from a completely new perspective. And in the end, the way to actually get it to work, I had to uh, basically model the code after how a jetpack would work in real life with actual thrust and affecting the player's mass and gravity. And the jetpack is just a simple script on the player that checks for a button on the VR controller. So if you're holding down a button, you can fly around basically, and it plays audio, and it has a kind of bubble effect that comes out of the bottom of it. And you can see over here, I can change different components of this jetpack, like the thrust and the fly speed and the fuel and the fuel consumption rate, so how fast it runs out, and then the fuel regeneration rate. And then I also have an energy bar to reflect how much fuel is left, and that's just this lightning icon right here, and this will go down as you're using the jetpack, and that's to prevent the player from flying infinitely far up and making it a little more skilled. So you actually have to calculate, if you want to get up cliffs, you have to calculate how much fuel you have and make sure you don't run out, because if you run out, another thing that I added a few days ago is that if you fall from a really tall distance or hit the ground really hard, you will lose health on your player, and that health is also reflected on this health bar right here, so that'll go down. And I have to add a sound effect to that, and that was the jetpack. Another thing I worked on was the inventory system, which I actually have completely redone that just recently. It used to be a UI that pops up when the player hits a button, and you can see all the resources you've collected throughout the entire game. But I'm going to move that off of the player, and it will be an actual screen, so an actual like display screen that you have to walk up to in the game, instead of just being a 2D interface that you can open up anywhere in the world. And that was pretty difficult to do, making sure everything gets into the player's inventory properly, and if you use up the resources, it has to delete them from the inventory. But the actual script is fairly easy, but it does communicate with dozens of other scripts. So this is the inventory manager script. And another thing I worked on would be these two tools right here, and this one, both the models will be redone. This one is a flamethrower, so you can damage enemies with that. That one was actually fairly simple, and I'll be redoing that model soon, but it does play a particle effect, which is basically this. So you can see that flame right there. When you hold that trigger, you can, well, shoot flame out of it. And the other tool is a tool that can suck up resources. So if I go into here and put down a resource like this, and you point this tool at it and hold a trigger, it will suck up these resources and put them into your inventory from earlier, like I explained earlier. And this model I actually did update, and I'm currently redoing this right now with this model, so you can see this one is a lot better, and same exact functionality, just an updated better model, clearly. And speaking of the inventory, I have these drones, which I only started working on about a week ago, and I finished them a few days ago, except for a few tweaks that I have to make to the drone. So the drones, basically what they're for is once you go out manually and collect resources, you can go to these drones and select a resource from your inventory and tell the drone to go and collect that resource, so you can have an automated way of collecting these resources. So you hit this button, and when the game is playing, this UI is hidden, so you walk up to here and you hit this button, and you can select any resource you want, and then this will update to that icon, this collecting icon, that'll update to whatever resource you selected, and then you can hit this button and the drone will fly off, and it will go and collect resources around the world, and then you can call it back when it has filled up, because it has a max of about 10 resources. And then there's 2 other drones, so you can have 3 processes going on at the same time. But initially, when you start the game, there will be no drones, and you have to craft the drones and maintain the drones, and a bunch more will be put into it, but I haven't worked on that yet. And this UI, I can't show it unless I put the VR headset on and hit play, but there are animations when you hover over these icons, and there's a lot more stuff going on. There's sound effects when you hit these buttons, there's animations for the drone, there's a lot more stuff to all of this, and these tools play sound effects, and they play particle effects, and there's a lot going on. Another thing that I worked on would be a couple 3D models. So this is a 3D model that I worked on that'll be used later on in the game, and I haven't gotten to that yet, but I have the model and I'm ready to work on it, but I'm going to come back to that later. I have obviously this main base area, and this general area right here isn't done, but when it is done, this is kind of the home base for the player to manage everything. And you can see I put these little text boxes above all of these buttons, and those are things that I have to get to work on. And this will be well, I'll go over each one basically. So this will be base upgrades. So again, originally these, like for example, these lights will be hidden, and then you can unlock the lights by gathering resources, and then you have to craft the lights, and it'll put up these lights, it'll put up these walls, it'll put decorations around, it'll put these fences on here, just to give the player more to work on. The storage tank will unlock more capacity in your inventory, and there'll be different tiers of that. And over here, there's 3 things. The first one is selling, which will be a major part of the game, so I'll come back to that in a second. The interface, which is also another major part of the game, and then player upgrades, so you can upgrade that jetpack and your flamethrower and those tools to be more efficient, easier to use, and it'll make the game easier for the player as the game also gets harder. the selling will be so you can sell resources and then buy things from, I guess, like different solar systems and planets across the universe. And then the interface is part of the storyline to the game, which I'll probably explain when I'm done with that. And yesterday I started working on this farming mechanic right here. So, like I mentioned earlier, the player has a health bar, and that bar will go down, and you can die from enemies or fall damage or anything that I want to deal damage to the player. And the way to get that health bar to go back up is you need food, and you need to eat the food. So you can craft this farm right here, and it'll grow these carrots, and then you can either pick the carrots with your hand and then eat them, or you can use the collector tool right here. So that would be the farm. And then I also have a cave entrance so far, which is not done, and I did this a few weeks ago, but that'll lead into one of the caves, and there will be three major caves, one right there, one over here somewhere, and then one into this volcano. And those three caves are how you progress through the game, and you have to gather resources and fight enemies in those caves. And those caves will actually be fairly easy to work on, and I plan on getting each cave done in one day, so 3 days. And other than that, there's dozens and dozens of other small things that I have put into the game. Obviously these trees, and there's some stuff you can't see right now because the game isn't playing. Dozens of sound effects. I have a walking sound effect. So on the player down here, I have a script called Footstep Manager, and that plays a footstep sound effect when you're walking. But the tricky part about that is if the player is off the ground, you don't want to play that sound effect, even if the character is moving the joystick still. So that was fairly difficult, and that would be the major things. There's ambience, and the lighting settings I've changed a lot, and if I hit play, maybe you can see a few more things. So I'll let it load for a second. And while that's loading, you can see I made all of these resources, and these are all models, and that took way more time than I thought it would take. But those aren't actually in the game world yet, because I'm not ready to put them in yet. So yeah, you can see these UIs on the drones are hidden. I got some waterfall effects, so it looks like the water's hitting the ground. And in the game, these waterfalls play a sound to make it feel more alive. There's the smoke ring, or not smoke ring, fog over the volcano, some birds flying around, and yeah, and that would be, again, the most major things I've been working on so far. And that's it. Thank you for watching.